I don't remember how to play.
I've gone bankrupt in 1817 before.
It's 19. Oh, it's 18. Okay, but yeah,
it's not 1917. That'd be World War One.
I'll remember eventually. It's not in Europe.
Yeah. All right. It's Monday, January 26th, 2026. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is GeekNights. Tonight, in the year 2026, we are talking about something you might have played with before. It's called a webcam. So, yeah, it was a quite eventful weekend in a very bad way, considering where we left the
So many bad ways.
So many bad ways. But at least we got a nice snowstorm in New York. That was a nice thing that happened. It was
nice snowstorm. That was one of the bad things.
Well, it didn't. Nothing even shut down. Like the subways were working fine. We walked to the grocery store. Everything was open by us.
No, but nothing like that happened. But I had to stay inside, and it was.
Oh, see, we went outside. We went for a walk on purpose in the snow.
Okay, well, that's because you're crazy. But it would have been much better if it was 90 degrees and sunny this weekend. That would have been very. This is the exact opposite of that, and therefore it is bad.
Yep. But you may recall last week on Geek Nights, we were talking about the situation in Minneapolis and how that's escalating rapidly. And here we are, a couple days after the government murdered a second person, and things have escalated extremely rapidly. And the broad summary of where we stand right now at 5:53 p.m. Eastern time on Monday is the good guys are starting to win a little bit. Some ICE forces have been basically told to leave Minneapolis. Not many, but it's a start. And the Senate has said they're not going to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Even Rand Paul, who is a insane and evil man, has issued some angry statements and is now demanding that the Department of Homeland Security explain what they're spending their money on.
I have found it interesting that there is a segment of the libertarian types, right? Who, if you go to like reason.com, like those types, right? Who, you know, in the earliest days when I didn't know fucking anything, right? is, you know, a lot of the things they were saying made some sense to, you know, an adolescent teenage male brain who hadn't seen any of the world, right? And yet they were also in favor of all sorts of lunacy, right? But somehow that lunacy, which went against their principles, yet they were in favor of, now, when it comes to this point, they're back to their supposed principles again.
Yep. Well,
right? And I just wonder about, it's a different type of, I've seen some people arguing whether cognitive dissonance is real or not, but regardless, whatever that is, it's different than the people who speak out both sides of their mouth that are just straight up right wing.
It's like the crazy person who is very consistent in what they say and believe versus the person who is wholly rudderless and wholly without anchor and literally just trying to worm their way into power no matter what. Like, there are very different kinds of operators.
Yeah, but I've seen this is finally like that person, that capital L libertarian person.
Yep.
It wasn't until this moment, all the other bullshit we've gone through, right? They have been like on the bad side, right? They have, right? They have been, right?
And they're still on the bad side of most issues.
Right. But only now they were in favor of guns. They were right and all this stuff. But now that the government shot people, now that's the lot. They did have a line, apparently.
Well, I mean, if their whole thing is the government's
government shooting people on the street was their line.
Yep. I am glad that some of those people have a line, because I was increasingly cynically worried that they did not.
I'm still, fuck those people.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying it's surprising that those people who this whole time have been just garbage. So it's like, oh, really? It's like, wow. Where have you been?
Like, well, I guess there is
welcome to the party.
There is a big difference between having a line, no matter how deep in the mud it is, versus not having a line.
Well, no, those other people do. The people you say don't have a line, they do have a line. The line is
them
close to
personally.
us, where the socialism is. That's their line. They don't want to go too far the other direction.
Yeah.
They have no line. It's only, Bugs Bunny says, if you cross this line, Yosemite Sam. There's no line behind Yosemite Sam. The line's only in front of him.
Yep.
Okay.
But I think what changed is a lot of things happen at once. But I think, we don't need to dwell on it, but they murdered a guy who didn't do anything wrong and, in fact, was doing the right thing straight up with 10 camera angles in broad daylight with impunity. And then that day, the U.S. government said that the person they murdered was a terrorist who is attacking them, and they made up all this nonsense.
But everyone can see the video that is not a doctored video and knows that is not true.
And even then, yes, many non-white people have been murdered in controvertible video before, and America broadly shrugs its shoulders. But not only was this so clear, there's no way to spin this, but the fact that they lied so brazenly, they may have overplayed their hand. The chant I'm seeing in all the activist circles is just replying to everyone saying, we saw the video. Now what? We saw it. So this is kind of a turning point. Lots of people who have been very quiet, famous people, important people, old politicians, they are people who have not said much for a long time are all saying the same thing. And the Senate really is poised to defund ICE. That is something that might happen.
The only thing I'll say, it's okay, those people, right? It's you're doing what you're supposed to be doing now, so I'm not going to stop you, right?
Oh, they're not allies. They're not.
No. But the point is we saw this coming not from 1 mile away, not from 2 miles away, right? We saw this coming from the next galaxy away. Right?
I mean,
and we were right. And therefore, that is a grave injustice for the people who were right to not be the ones
not
in
only
charge.
That we were right, and I say we, all of us, a
more,
lot of you
more
than
right.
GeekNights.
The grand we, the total we, not just individuals.
But not only were we right, but I spent my entire adult and late adolescent life being told I was being hysterical, I was overreacting. You call the Republicans fascists, and here we are, shooting people in the street. Everything we saw happened, and remember a while back, Scott, you weren't part of this, but me and the other Scott and another friend of ours did a podcast. We read this book about the rise of the Nazis in Germany. And the thing that stands out the most is that in the 20s and the 30s in Germany, it was just as obvious. And the same people there were saying the same things we were saying.
I think we need a new form of government whereby, right, power is somehow allocated to the people who were the most right the most early.
Yep.
Like whoever is and even if that's somebody who's just is trying to get power by randomly predicting things and hoping that they're right.
If
well,
you're
it's
right, you're right.
Well, what's that person has to make a lot of predictions, right? And what percentage of those will be wrong, and that won't work out for them. But someone who is, raising alarms and is consistently correct about the alarms they're raising should gain in power rather than and that would
case in point, if Nostradamus were actually right, we would be studying Nostradamus.
That's right.
But
anyway.
Yeah, so pay attention. This is I cannot stress enough. And there's a Geek Nights from 4 years ago where I said this. I should find it because I was really spun up about it. Immigration and ICE is the flashpoint. That is the point of resistance. That is the point of anger. AOC for years has been saying that is the place to pay attention. Other politicians have been saying it, and there's a few reasons for that. One, that is the place the fascist side of the government has been putting a lot of its violence resources for a while now. But two, that is the place that has some of the largest networks of support, activism, humanitarian resources. There are a lot of networks of activists who have been fighting that fight.
It's also where the injustice is the most immediate and obvious. You shot a person in the street, right? When they cut everyone's health care, it's hard that doesn't make the news around the world that someone died because they tried to go to the hospital and they refused to pay, or someone didn't go to the hospital because they're worried about medical bills, right?
Yep.
It's like that person, that's actually probably a lot more people dying, honestly, right? But those people die quietly, right? Whereas one person, an innocent person, just being murdered in the street by a government, right? In a country where that's not supposed to happen, right? That happens in other countries all the time,
Yeah.
right? But in a country that at least, has paid lip service and never never walked the walk fully in its 2 centuries, right? You know.
So in some other news, Twitter, I guess X now, Europe is actually moving toward potentially banning it because of all the things it's done. Not even just the Holocaust denial that was happening, but now
the automatic child porn generator.
The automatic child porn generator has tripped some wires in Europe to where the European Commission has launched formal investigations. And the nature of these investigations, like, I'm not a foreign policy expert of like this kind of regulation, so take this with a grain of salt and read some real news like I'm going to link to. But there is a broad difference between the European Commission is investigating something and the European Commission is capital I investigating something. The apparatus of Europe is pissed, and this is not just about the automatic child porn machine that Elon Musk owns. It is also about the fact that is a great excuse to go after a company and a platform that is part of the regime that Europe is also extremely angry about for a bunch of reasons. There is a confluence that might lead to Grok and X just straight up being made illegal in Europe, and I hope it happens. I really hope it happens.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. Europe's the center of a lot of good things lately, as your news is about to talk about.
Well, because on the one hand, right, when you have a globalized society, right, and the borders between countries are blurred and whatnot, there's good and bad things that go along with that.
Yep.
And one of the good things that goes along with that, if it's, if people are nice and aren't, garbage, is that you gain a lot of efficiency because one country does something and then every country benefits rather than everyone having to reinvent everything, right? So if you think about during the Cold War, it's like, well, the U.S. invented something, that would improve the lives of Americans. Soviet people wouldn't have access to that unless their country discovered it independently. And it would be somewhat difficult for them to do that, right? Even if some spies came to the U.S. and saw the technology that everyone had, I don't know, better washing machines, right? It's like, okay, they had to bring a washing machine back to the Soviet Union. They would take a schematic of one.
I mean, case in point, it's almost literally impossible to develop thermonuclear weapons. They were only developed via extreme testing, and almost every country that has them stole the technology because it can't be developed.
But even if you stole the instructions and the schematics for the advanced whatever, it's like you now have to build up the manufacturing capacity to actually produce it for your people, and you have to steal people that know how to do that, or it's very difficult. But if we're globalized and everyone's trading and everyone's friendly and nice and behaving, then it's like, oh, one country makes the best televisions and everyone else just fucking buys them.
Yep, but that leads to the monoculture of there's one thing that most people use to do something important.
Right. Now, one of the downsides of this is that if countries are not nice to each other, or you start to distrust each other and alliances break down, then it's like, well, yeah, we could just buy, TVs from evil country, but we don't trust evil country because they're evil country. We don't want those TVs in our country because who knows what the fuck they're going to be doing, right?
Or even if we let them in our country,
security risk now.
We need an alternative in case things get worse or for important things like government stuff.
Right. So the EU, and more specifically France,
it's always France.
Been for some time, they're not feeling great because all of the major video conferencing solutions that people are using every day for tons and tons of meetings are all based on U.S. companies. You got Zoom, U.S. company. Google, U.S. company. Apple FaceTime, Google, U.S. company. Cisco, whatever the fuck that thing's called that only weird people use, I forget. Right? Fucking Microsoft Teams. It's like every major video conferencing platform other than open sourcey ones is hosted and run by a U.S. company. And so France is like, this is a security risk because the U.S. is now evil. We can't trust it anymore. We have to make our own video conferencing thing, and they have made their own video conferencing thing. It's called Vizio, which is the same name as the TV brand, but regardless, it's a sovereign French video conferencing platform that is going to expand in use and will hopefully, I guess, according to them, be in like full use by 2027, that they no longer have to worry about using United States-made video conferencing solutions.
What I particularly like is that the stated goal is to protect the public's security and confidentiality in their communications.
Yeah.
This leads to the thing I talk about a lot. I mean, Scott knows. What do I bring up all the time? I either bring up the UN, the Senate filibuster in the U.S., and the districting of how America works, or I bring up the public option. And this is an example of a public option. So the government of France is basically saying the existence of a technology like this is so important that our government should guarantee that there is a form of this available within our country that can't be taken away from us, that is broadly available. But they're not precluding private companies from also making similar things. Like, that is what a public option is. It is the clearest and fastest path to the best parts of socialism and communism without the worst parts in terms of the provision of resources effectively. Like, you don't want to prevent people from innovating in the private sector, but you also want to make sure there's at least a bare minimum viable thing that does the thing society needs. So you have a public option for this. If this sucks and the French government can't make it work, people will continue to use other options.
Mm.
All right. Things of the day. But anyway, things of the day. So one of our friends linked us to this website, and it's just amazing. They're doing some research, and they found this website on the Maya people, and there's a lot here. I suggest you go look at this website yourself. But the thing about this website is twofold. One, it looks exactly like the old internet. Like, this is what most websites used to look like. But two, this website has a lot of good information. Like, websites like this are very good at being websites. So I encourage you, if you need to make a website that has information on it, take a look at this website and maybe make it structured like this, because I know...
Yeah, but maybe do typography better than 1990.
Yeah, the typography is awful.
Yeah,
but you know what?
Make it more accessible than 19...
I guess the things that are valuable about websites like this are that they are text first and information first. Images are secondary and images are supplementary to the main content, and they are deeply cited and heavily hyperlinked. Like, that is what the internet, well, the web was good at, and that is what we lost when they stole the old internet from us. Also, I learned some things skimming through this website. Like, there's actually a lot of cool information here. So what do you got?
So this is kind of not the best thing of the day.
I watched this video too, so it's fine.
It's kind of a clickbait video, but
yeah, but you can't pretend you didn't want to see what happens when you put a lithium-ion battery under a blowtorch.
Because it's not only most clickbait is like gives you a title or a thumbnail to spark curiosity, and then of course you need to click it to find the answer they could have just told you. But the thing here is this is sparking your curiosity about something you were already curious about, right? And so that's sort of like the double clickbait. I just put
the phone battery in the microwave and drilled a hole in it.
So whenever you read, for example, whenever you see a warning label on something, there's, at least for me, if you have a curious mind, you always want to know, like, what if I eat the silica gel? Why does it say do not eat?
The silica gel is making me
You kind of want to see someone else eat the silica gel, right? It's like, you're smart enough not to eat it, but you got to know. And so I have in the past Googled, like, what happens if you eat the silica gel, right? So this one is, what if you ignore the warnings on the lithium-ion batteries and drill into them, set them on fire, submerge them, and do all the things that you're not supposed to do with lithium-ion batteries? Because, and obviously don't do any of these things ever. Yeah. But lithium-ion batteries, the reason they are so great is, we've talked about this before a long time ago, is that other batteries we've had in the past, your lead acids, your alkalines, whatever, they don't have enough energy density, right?
Yep.
And so if you need a lot of power, you need a large lead acid battery like the one in a car.
Or
right?
the one in a data center.
Right. And the charging is slow, the discharging is slow. Or,
I used to run data
battery.
centers. Like we had the acid room because it was the battery room. The battery room was full of lead acid batteries, and we had to seal it off through multiple interlocks from the rest of the building. The walls were corroding. Any metal in that room was like slowly deteriorating. We had to wear masks when we went in there because there were just so many lead acid batteries stacked up.
Yep. And there's an instability with different types of batteries, but lithium-ion batteries, they're packing a lot of energy into a small space relatively stably, right? Quite stably, in fact, if they're well manufactured. And you can charge them and discharge them rapidly and get the energy in and out efficiently. And that's why they've revolutionized the world. They're more important than most of the other technical developments we've had over the past decade or few. And the problem is that still a lot of potential energy stored, right? No matter how you slice it. Yep. It's like it's a lithium-ion battery that's charged as a rock at the top of a hill. And if the rock comes down, it can smash things.
Think about your phone. The tiny battery in your phone has enough power to run a fucking computer that is hundreds of times more powerful than my old desktop machines from when I was a kid all day.
Right. Well, part of that's to the efficiency of the new chips, but regardless, it's still a lot of power in there. And if the power gets loose because something happens to the battery to destabilize it, that is very dangerous. If all the power comes out in a too short amount of period of time. And this video hopefully will convince you that, yes, you should heed all the warnings on the lithium-ion battery.
In particular, do not drill a hole into the side of a lithium-ion battery with a metal drill bit.
Yes, it's a very bad idea. But if you need to satisfy the curiosity to prevent yourself from harming yourself, this video solves that problem.
In the meta moment, the GeekNights Book Club book, which was I Who Have Never Known Men. I'm going to pick the new one as soon as I venture out to the bookstore, which will probably be this week.
I've been to the books. I didn't go in, but I walked past the bookstore. You could have gone there since the last show.
I could have, but I have been busy. And on the snow day, I didn't walk to the bookstore. We walked to the park. But if you have not read it, I Have Never Known Men is really short, and you should read it because it's very good and relevant. But also remember, the GeekNights Book Club, we've done a whole bunch of books, and every one of those books, there's an episode of us talking about that book for like an hour, assuming you've read it. GeekNights has been going for over 20 years, so there's a decent number of books there. I was thinking about The Prince of Nothing the other day, and I went back to see what we said about it. And I don't think there's ever going to be any more Prince of Nothing books. But anyway.
No problem.
We will be at PAX East with a all-new version of a talk we gave so long ago. I actually didn't remember what we said, and I watched a video of us talking about quitting and rage quitting and stuff. So we're going to be doing that on Thursday at PAX East. I'm going to be landing pretty direct from London for that PAX East, so I might be a little tired. But otherwise, I guess PAX West is the next convention after that for us. Yeah, PAX East, PAX West. I can't go to ZenkaiCon this year. And just follow us everywhere.
If someone else knows a convention that we should go to, we could. Our schedule has been locked in stone for several years now. But
ossified, one might say.
Yeah, but there's, if there's some event out there that we should know about that, wants us or isn't too big a lift.
Look, if you want us to give a talk,
would ease the lift, would bring us. We haven't tried really.
If you want us to give a talk at a place that is within a day trip of Queens, it is very likely we will say yes if the timing is right.
Yeah,
a day trip,
especially talking about more fan type events like MagFest where it's by the people and not some corporate type event.
Yeah,
it could be anything. It doesn't have to be a gaming anime tech conference. It could be anything where we would fit in somehow.
Yeah, podcasting. We've been podcasting for a long goddamn time.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, guess we're experts in that.
There's a lot of scenes that we're not in, so there could be things that exist that we just don't know because we're.
Yeah, I haven't talked to the Nerd Night.
Outside of our circles.
We gave that talk at the Nerd Night at the Galapagos Club a long time ago. That was fun.
Does that still exist?
Yeah, Nerd Night's still going. I should email the guy and be like, hey, been like 12 years. You want us to come back? Galapagos isn't even there anymore.
What did we even talk about there?
We gave a 15-minute talk, and I do not fucking remember what it was on. I literally don't remember what the fuck we said. We went first, I think, and there were 3 talks. It was a good time.
All I remember, there was an OkCupid one.
Yep. It was like the data from OkCupid.
It seems like there's nerd nights all over the place.
Yeah, but the one we talked
website.
at, I'm still on the mailing list of the guy who still runs it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, let's get right into it. So this morning, I was thinking about this because I was messing with my OBS and messing with all my setup because I was doing all this VR experimentation. And then I set everything back up for work. And today I had to work from home. And I go to do a Zoom meeting at like 8 a.m. And I go into the Zoom meeting and I open my webcam and everything looks fine. And then I open Zoom and Zoom decides to wash everything out. It's like the exposure is like 1,000,000 times higher than it needs to be. And it took a bunch of fucking to fix that because of the interplay between Zoom and the Logitech stuff and what I have configured in OBS. And it was just a bunch of stupid crap. But it reminded me that I haven't thought about webcams in a long time, despite the fact that I stare into a webcam all day, every day, 5 days a week in my job now and have for some time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day, right, we had first we had digital cameras, right? We had the film cameras. That's not going to help you, right? Then we had digital cameras.
Yep.
But those digital cameras, their ability to capture video was not the best,
Yep.
right? Or non-existent, really. And once the webcams did have the ability to capture video in low resolution, it's like they could barely write it to like SD cards that were in them with any quality because the SD cards were so slow.
Yep.
And they definitely couldn't encode it and send it over a USB 2 cable,
Yep.
right? At any quality, right? Because the amount of processing power you'd have to have in the inside the digital camera for that real-time encoding and that, right? And then your computer would have to, oh my God, right? So they had specialized webcams, and this is basically the earliest webcam. It was like there's an API for it, like a USB webcam, and you make a driver for your operating system. It's like a standard, so all your major computer operating systems, right, you can make webcams for, and it's just a camera that takes the video and just sends it on USB according to this protocol that has been around for decades at this point. And your computer has a driver, and all the different software on your computer talks to whatever API your operating system has for webcams, and it just kind of works. And there's all these standards have been agreed upon, and people are obeying them. So somehow.
Yep.
And so any device that speaks webcam to a computer, it doesn't have to be a hardware device. It could be just a software, creates a webcam as far as your operating system is concerned. And then any program on your computer can get that webcam if you give it permission to and access the video stream from it. And that's how the difference between a webcam and just a camera.
Yep. Now, nowadays, we'll talk about like the current state of this, but you got to understand that we're a little old. Webcams, when they first existed, were very hard to use for any purpose because what are you going to do with that video? Like, we didn't have computers that could do much with video for a long time. And the internet, it's not like most people were on dial-up. So webcams were mostly, that term colloquially, it either was someone who was a nerd who prioritized nerdery and internet biz, had a webcam pointed at something interesting, and you could go to a website to see that thing, which you have to understand how fucking amazing that was in the 90s. Like,
yeah, the
I had some
earliest
webcams
one,
I would like check on. Like every now and then, like, hey, I wonder what's going on with, like, there was a bird cam in my, like, in
it was
Southeast
usually
Michigan.
an animal at a zoo.
Yep.
I remember Hurricane Katrina. There were some webcams that were live.
The Trojan,
or there would be like
the Trojan room, the first webcam, that was what, 91? That was before. Oh, here, I found a Wikipedia article. The
there would
Trojan
be
room
some
coffee
located
pot.
in famous places. Like, hey, you want to see what's going on at Eiffel Tower right now? You want to go see what's going on Times Square right now?
The very first webcam, I was correct, was a coffee pot that a guy got online before web browsers supported images in 1991. And in 1993, when web browsers gained the ability to show images, this was the first webcam because the image of the coffee pot to check whether or not it was full of coffee was now available on the web, and anyone who had access to the World Wide Web could look in semi-real time at this 128 by 128 grayscale image of a coffee pot to see whether or not it was full.
It's like we call it a webcam because of that early, I guess, that they were mostly used for capturing live video of the real world and putting that video on web pages.
Yep. And why did we do this?
They're just a device to stream video to a computer in real time, but relative to your capacity.
You weren't going to do audio. Like, audio was real hard to do back then. Like, real media didn't.
Those early ones did not have audio.
Yep. And two-way communication
but you could
was out.
The thing is, computers back then already supported microphones. You just had a separate microphone.
Yep. But basically, that one-way experience was what webcams were for a long time. And it wasn't until I think I was a junior in high school that I didn't have this. We had a cable modem, but we didn't have video chat. But I had a friend who was also nerdy, but his family was a lot richer than ours. And he got one of an early webcam, and he had some video chat software that this wasn't like the stuff that you know later. This was like something they paid a lot of money for, and you could only talk to people who also had the same software. I don't remember what it was called. And he called me over one day because they just got it set up, and he was like, holy shit, Rim, you can talk to people with video on the internet. And I go over, and he spins this
really
up.
Low quality, but it works.
Yep. And we had a conversation with like his uncle. And then he's like, okay, we're going to go into the public chat rooms now. And we go into this room. And
penises.
The literal, I'm not exaggerating or joking, immediately what is on the screen is
how do you even know it's a penis? It's so low resolution.
That someone has pointed this webcam directly at their penis, like they're holding it from the top down. And my friend says, yeah, isn't this awesome?
Your friend, okay. I guess your friend really likes penises. To each their own.
I would say that person went through a journey and realized what they should have always known about themselves much later in adulthood, and that they are that person had a good outcome in their life. They are not a bad person, but they were captured by the socio-political zeitgeist of the era at that particular time, and were hiding it from themselves. Anyway,
the point is.
As soon as you could have two-way video communication, this was both absolutely mind-bogglingly amazing and instantly became kind of mundane and actually not that useful because voice communication was way more useful practically.
I mean, even when people started to get more access to doing real-time video chat on the web, it's like you would do, there was some websites that did it with Flash, right? Macromedia Flash could support it to some extent. And then you could eventually, we had things like Skype and Google Hangout, which became Meet and all these other ones, right? But even as those things came and doing this was accessible to people, a lot of people's computers, they didn't have a webcam. They would have had to go to the store and buy a separate webcam.
Yep.
Right? And so that still, even though they were cheap, like $50, or depending on cheap for some people, right? It's like there wasn't a big impetus to do this, right? It's sort of like a parlor trick even.
Yep. Well, for me, I got webcams set up pretty early, not too long after my friend showed me that penis. But even then, among all my friends who also could do that kind of two-way video call, we kind of stopped doing it because it wasn't actually that useful. Usually, we wanted to have voice only because we were playing Quake or something.
I mean, even when people do a video chat, they don't. Are you really looking at the video of people's faces?
I'm not looking at Scott while I'm doing GeekNights. I'm looking at whatever Wikipedia article I have up to sound smart.
Rim's face isn't even on my screen anywhere. Even
I can see Scott way over there, but only because
I can see me. I see me, but I don't see you.
Yep.
I guess for me to see you, I have to click on this.
I'm not sending to you.
Oh, I can't even see you. I see, a very old duck.
Yep.
It's snowing. He's very cold.
Because I'm sending to OBS
He's cold.
only.
He's cold and old. The cold old duck.
But and part of that, we're performers. So when I'll admit, and when I'm in work calls, I spend a lot of time in Zoom. I do a lot. I'm a senior whatever person for a company. I I am usually, when I'm presenting something, looking at my own face. I'm not looking at the people I'm presenting to. I'm looking at my own face because I am tuning as I talk, like how I'm presenting myself to the audience. Like, I don't need to see the other people's faces in most calls I have. But
the point is that, because of all this, right, actual video chat usage did not explode until a few things happened. First, people started getting laptops that had cameras built in to the top of the screen.
That was a big deal.
Right? And, of course, the big one, people got phones with front-facing cameras that just sort of did this, right?
When was the first front-facing camera? Because that was not a thing for a long time. Yeah, the iPhone 1?
I think it was the iPhone 1, right?
Or
maybe it was one of the flip phones. Let's see. First phone with front-facing camera. But I think some of those early ones, I think, only did selfies and didn't necessarily do live video.
The Casio QV10 digital camera featured... Okay, that's not it. Wikipedia, perhaps the first front-facing camera on an handheld device was the Game Boy camera, 1998.
Facts. Nintendo DS also had cameras.
Yep, the K Visual Phone VP 2010 in Japan.
Possibly.
The first iPhone included it. No, iPhone 4. iPhone 4.
You're saying iPhone 3G didn't have a front-facing camera?
The first iPhone to include a front-facing camera was the iPhone 4, citation 14, Wikipedia.
I suppose. Okay. How about that?
Yeah, how about that?
This is why I was upgrading iPhones every 2 years in those early days, because there were huge changes.
Hey, here's new technology that you don't have.
We put 2 cameras in it. Now they've got like 5 cameras in there.
Yeah, and during that era,
it's like going from 1 to 2 made a big difference. Going from 3 to 4, it's like, okay,
you know why
whatever.
I didn't have an iPhone back then? Because I didn't have a smartphone. I didn't have any fucking money.
Anyway, but yeah, putting cameras in the devices that they were just there, and so everyone had access to the feature, and then making the software that used that feature just are there by default, and so everyone had the same software and it all worked together. And the other big thing that's really helped is there's a standard web API for webcams, and this is why when you're in any web browser on any device and you go to a website, that website can be like, hey, can I take a look at your webcam? And you can say yes, and then your webcam, all the video is sent to the website, and this could be used for live video chat. Or it could be used for like those websites where you try on glasses virtually.
Yep.
Or...
Which shows fundamentally that this idea that comes up time and time again, just because the technology exists, unless either the technology is ubiquitous or someone comes up with a truly new thing you can do with that technology, it's not going to get adoption among regular people. But as soon as there was a camera everywhere, suddenly people came up with a ton of great ways to use those cameras.
Mm-hmm. Now, one interesting thing I mentioned before, right, is that a webcam technically doesn't even have to be a piece of hardware, right? It's just these APIs that get video streamed to them. So, for example, right, if you use OBS creates like this fake webcam device on your computer, your operating system. When you install OBS, Open Broadcaster software, your operating system thinks you have this hardware webcam when you don't. What actually happens is if you go to OBS, whatever OBS captures, it could be a screen capture or literally anything that you can capture with OBS, including other webcams that are real. OBS can output that to this sort of fake webcam, and then any other software on your computer thinks that output from OBS, whatever compositive video stream you've put together, is a webcam, and then it can be used for the other purpose. For example, you could take a capture, you can capture a video game you're playing, and then you can go to I guess you would just do like a Google Meet, and then you could say, hey, Google Meet, my webcam is the OBS webcam, and now everyone in the Google Meet is watching the video game instead of your face. Right? And that's the thing you can do.
Which shows the other thing, the most powerful thing you can do with any technology is make it easily interoperable. The fact that you can just send a stream of data into this webcam interface, that is the technology. Like, that is why this is so powerful.
Now, one thing that I was upset about for a long time is that there are some cases where, most of these webcams that you buy off the shelf, right? Even if you buy the best ones, like the fancy Logitech HD ones and whatnot, right? It's like the quality just isn't really there, right? They're going for size, and they're
Yep.
using a USB cable, and for a long time it was USB 2 and then USB 3, and even if you had enough USB bandwidth, it's like your computer didn't have the processing power. Even today, people's computers sometimes get a little laggy when they're doing a video stream,
Yep.
right? Because it's got to do all the encoding.
Not
and
everyone
whatnot.
has a supercomputer. I launched VR the other night, and I didn't notice for a while that I left Overwatch also running in the background, and I was OBSing.
Right. And so, as a result of that, webcams were not putting out the best quality of video. They were not the best cameras, right? They were like this really tiny cameras, the kind you have in your phone, just on their own, basically. And what if you wanted to do a stream with high quality footage from a fancy camera, right? It's like, well, for a long time, up until really recently, like only a few years ago, even the fanciest video cameras, DSLRs and whatnot, they did not have any way to do video out. They had video out to a webcam type USB interface. They could only output HDMI or, something like that. And so you would need to get a capture card, which is basically takes HDMI input and USB output in order to sort of create a webcam and capture the output from a real camera, encode it, and now the computer can treat that as a webcam. And that was a huge pain in the ass, a huge expense, not a lot of fun.
Yep. Like I have a really expensive video input capture device to use for that kind of thing.
Yeah. But nowadays, over the past few years, right, finally, the big-time camera manufacturers have basically put the necessary hardware in their cameras so that you can take, like if you go buy a new Canon camera, I'm pretty sure, you could just plug it into your computer with a USB cable, and the computer's like, oh, I see you've plugged in a webcam, even though you just plugged in like a multi-$1,000 DSLR, right? And when you go to Google Hangout, if other people have enough bandwidth and you have enough CPU and they have it, it'll look fucking incredible.
Yeah.
That's really made a lot of streaming easier for mostly streaming, right? People do it on Twitch and YouTube.
Yep. I mean, most pro streamers and serious people, like I'm using the same Logitech C920 I've been using for like a decade because for this kind of stream, it's good enough. But like if we're recording a panel that we're going to stream or I'm doing anything serious, I can just point my DSLR at me instead and it looks fucking fantastic, but it's still just a webcam going into OBS.
But it's like they could have been doing that all this time, right? It's like that should have been something that cameras were doing like at least 10, 15 years ago. And they, for whatever reason, they just weren't doing that until more recently. And that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. Well, there's always like the sectors of technology that are just like very slow to move. Like audio interfaces were like that for a long time. Remember how much I would endlessly complain about like, you got to have FireWire because USB 2 doesn't have enough low latency bandwidth and the USB 3 like didn't work. And then even after USB 3 and USB-C and all these better ways to connect came out, it was like 5 years before audio interfaces finally were like, yeah, you don't need FireWire anymore. We actually finally support real USB.
Yeah. I also, there are some shenanigans you can also do wirelessly these days, right? For example, the camera that I have is capable of live streaming on its own. So in that case, it's actually not a webcam, right? There's no, like, it's not a camera talking to a computer operating system.
It'll just connect via RTMP the same way OBS does.
Right. Exactly. The camera can use RTMP and live stream itself with no computer. So you don't you watching that, for you it's a stream coming from a camera. You don't know any differently, but it's actually not a webcam technically speaking. Right? Because it's not using any of the webcam APIs whatsoever. It's just the camera streaming directly. I think the one major advancement we've seen somewhat recently is, at least I don't know if on Windows there's any way to do this with any particular Android device, but quite a while ago, Apple made it possible so that you can use your phone as the webcam wirelessly. So you go to Mac OS and you're going to, you go to your list of webcams or using any webcam enabled software in any direction, and your phone, if it's on and within range and you gave it permission to do so, shows up as a webcam, even though it's like in your pocket. And then you can say, oh, let me use my phone as the webcam. And then your phone streams its video wirelessly to the Mac and shows up as a webcam. And this is a lot more powerful than it might seem at first, right? Because like, why would I do that? My MacBook has like a camera right in it, built into it or whatever. Well, the cameras in your phone are way better than the camera.
I mean, the camera in your phone is
are.
way better than most very expensive webcams you can buy.
Yeah, right? But also, your phone has its own processing power that it can be used to do advanced webcam features, whereas even if you buy like the best Logitech webcam, it doesn't really have a lot of CPU power in it, right? It mostly is just as video, it just has a lens, a sensor, and a USB cable, right? Even if it's a really high quality one, they're not putting a big old CPU in there just for that. And so there's features such as like the center stage feature where it pans to keep your face in the middle, or there's various different things that can like adjust the lighting, even though it's virtually changing the lighting or just might be adjusting the ISO or whatever it's doing. They've simplified the interface so you don't really know what it's doing unless you look it up and whatever. But it could do a lot of things that the changing of the background to something else, right? You can do a lot of things when your phone is the webcam that you can't do when it's just a camera is the webcam. And I find it really nice because instead of having like a camera, like this purposeful device that sits on top of my monitor all the time, right? And I'm like not using it. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to be using my phone if I'm on a video call or a stream or anything like that. So it doesn't matter if my phone has to be the thing that does that. And in exchange, the quality is much improved. So why buy an extra thing that I already bought this very expensive
the stream
phone?
Now, considering all the compression and everything that happened, Scott's connecting to me via Discord for the video, and then I'm capturing it, plus my webcam. The stream you're watching right now, I got a C920, just like Garbo, like regular old Logitech webcam, and Scott's got the phone, and you can see the difference in the quality between the two.
Yep. So, I think that's pretty much the most exciting webcam related developments recently are professional or somewhat prosumer DSLRs or mirrorless cameras that can act as webcams when you plug them in with USB cables, USB-C cables, and using your phone as the webcam. And I think because of those developments, and also, of course, most people just using the camera built into the phone, built into their tablet, laptop, there's not too much reason for the standalone USB webcam anymore. There was a rush on them during like the COVID times, like because people were using desktops at home and didn't have a camera.
I have a bunch, but you know what I use those for? If I need a bunch of cheap studio cameras, because you can plug 10 webcams into one good computer and just record them all in OBS, like just fine.
OBS can, but most software only lets you choose one at a time. Oh, yeah. But OBS, you can get them all in there.
But like if you have a recording studio or a video studio, what you'll often have, in addition to your primary cameras that you're using for like real stuff, you'll have a bunch of cameras mounted all over the place with default camera angles, because then one, you get backup video in case something happens to your primary rig. Two, now you have all these extra camera angles just in case. And for me, because we're doing a bunch of VR experimentation, I do need a bunch of camera angles of me physically jumping around, because I'm using that to analyze how that translates into the motion in the game. A bunch of cheap USB webcams is a great way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about something like, if you're doing a real broadcast, think about like, a sports broadcast, like one of the most advanced broadcast setups there are, right? Where it's like they have these like enormous cameras with enormous lenses, like watching the main action, right? Then they got cameras in the studio to watch the studio people, and they got cameras up where the broadcasters are to show them, and they have all these different areas that they're shooting from. They got sky cams and cameras on cables and drone cameras and GoPros on the field and just cameras all over the place. But even then, they still occasionally will show like a 5-second shot of, the people sitting in the trailer outside, like waving, like, hey, for like 3 seconds,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, or maybe you're watching some, morning radio show, and it's like, and then it's like, yeah, you see they cut to each person's face when they're talking, but then like for 2 seconds, they cut to some camera that's like up in the corner of the room that sort of shows the whole room with a wide angle.
Yeah,
it's like,
because you show that meta context, like you want to cut out to show like, oh, the producer said something funny offset, and then everyone reacted to it, and you want to like call that out.
Yeah, it's like you're not putting the crazy high quality cameras that are enormous and need camera operators for all these different angles. A lot of them are just the cheapest camera stuck up in the corner somewhere.
But the last thing I will say is, because I've read a few things about this, and I've also seen it happening in my career. Since COVID, there's a lot more remote work. Like, even though we lost a lot of that, there's still a lot of that. And we already did a show about live, like remote meetings, so we don't need to belabor the point there. But it is very clear, if you have a kind of job where you are often having remote meetings, if your video and audio are high quality, there's a lot of evidence showing that other people will have better opinions of you and think more positively of whatever you say, regardless of how good you are at your job. Like, that actually matters a lot. So if you have a job like that, set up the best webcam you can set up with whatever budget you've got, and make sure your audio's good, and don't use the audio that comes from the webcam, because that's often pretty bad.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is that webcams, even some of the better ones, it's like they don't have like, lenses like real, they have a lens obviously, but it's not like a lens on a real camera where you can open up the aperture or anything like that, right? So when it's dark, the only thing that they do is they can crank the ISO, basically. I'm not going to teach you everything about cameras if you don't know what that means, but all you need to know is that if it's too dark in the room when you're using the webcam, the quality is going to go way down, because then your image will be a lot noisier and uglier.
And meanwhile, shitty webcam, if you're well lit, will actually look pretty great.
Right. So if you have a webcam and you just want to look better on the webcam, it's probably a better idea to invest in lighting. Just shine a light on your face of some kind, right? Make sure the room is nice and bright, and that will help a lot, rather than going out and thinking you need to buy a multi-$1,000 DSLR when a $20 light bulb could have been the solution.
Yep. Even a big sensor and a camera and a good lens isn't going to help that much if your lighting's bad.
Yeah, what's going to happen if you buy the DSLR and your room is still dark? Okay, maybe you bought the Sony DSLR that has really good, low light performance. Okay, you spent thousands of dollars and you still crank the ISO, and now you just look better in the dark, I guess. But even then, if you turn the light on, it's like, yeah, it has good low light performance, but it has even better well-lit performance.
Oh, the thing that gets me the most, so many people I work with out in the wild, they're always sitting in a place when they work from home with like their back to a window and extreme backlighting and no front lighting. Usually with the camera angle of a MacBook pointed up at you. That's the other last thing. Humans generally do not look good if the camera pointing at your face is like coming from below your chin up at you. That's a rough angle to film.
I guess the summary is that, what made webcams really, sort of take over the world and finally become an everyday thing that's commonly used was not the hardware itself, that we solved that problem, even though the quality was low. That problem was solved decades ago, right? It was the fact that we just gave them to people basically by default, rather than requiring them to go and get one as a separate choice.
Ubiquity, right? And interoperability.
Right. And the software, in the operating system, the drivers, and the being standardized so that all the software that wanted to use a webcam could actually work and do so easily, even in web browsers, different web browsers and different platforms. It all just works because there were standards that were agreed to and were actually implemented and obeyed, and that made it actually become a thing. And a lot of software, a lot of other things out there, for example, I don't know, all the smart home shit, where there's like 20 different standards, and
they get bricked randomly.
You can't get this thing to work with that thing, and it's it's like it's a thing you have to go out and buy because like you want to have a smart home on purpose because you're a nerd. It's not just an automatic thing that's built into every home no matter what and in a standard way. That's the reason that stuff doesn't take off.